So today we are going to be showcasing another build, and this one is actually using the buffed up F2000, which is probably one of my favorite weapons, not only in PvE but also PvP. I actually use the name version, the shield splinter, for PvP, and then for PvE I've been using just the F2000. It's kind of replaced my FAMAS. This thing is an absolute laser beam on certain builds. It just shreds through enemies, especially once you start building those stacks. Now, if you notice how I have this build set up, you probably see some of the stats below. You're seeing I'm getting a ton of bonus armor. When I get kills, I even get more bonus armor. So it's actually pretty cool build to use. You're gonna have a lot of damage and you're gonna have some survivability because bonus armor will always be there depending on your playstyle. So what we'll do is we'll have a full build breakdown and let you guys see this build in action. Now this is a level 4 control point, so a heroic control point with one directive on. Now the talent on the gun I'm using is flatline, but you can put a talent like in sync. I just felt the way I have this thing set up, it has a really nice balance of survivability and obviously a nice balance of damage. And when you're a solo player, you definitely like having a little bit of both. And typically when I do play PvE, I like those builds that have damage that can drop enemies quick, and then obviously survivability, that if I get in those crazy situations, well, I have that survivability. Now on this build, you'll notice when I'm at full stacks, I have 45,000 armor regen. So just keep that in mind. I just want to show you this stat because when we go back to it, I won't have a 30 stack. And what I mean a 30 stack, I mean a 30 stack of memento for you new returning players. And those are those trophies you see when I kill an enemy. You see it drops a trophy. Once you get 30 of those, you will have a 30 stack. That's 30% extra weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. So I have that survivability too because of the armor regen. And you're seeing I have the damage too, right? Like heroic enemies are going down pretty quick. And the more I build up the stack, the more I go. And that's why I love this build for solo players. So if you enjoy running solo player builds, this might be one for you. I tend to put out a lot of solo builds on this channel, so definitely check out my PvE or PvP build playlist so you can kind of find the builds that I use for each activity. Now we are almost done with this control point. We have shredded through these enemies pretty quick, and you're seeing how we're able to pretty much keep up our stack too. You probably see a little heart there. We're gonna get into the build in just a second, but yeah, this build, if you guys have been looking for one that can put out the damage, have the survivability because of that bonus armor. You see, look at that chunk of bonus armor I have, and then just start shredding through these enemies. Well, this might be the build for you. So there you go. We just finished it in just about 3 minutes. Let's get into the build right now. So by now you guys probably want to see the build. You want to see how I have it broken down, and some of you guys kind of know the brand set or the gear set just by looking at some of the symbols that popped up on the screen. But let's get into the build so that way you guys can see what I'm using the F2000 with. So we are running the F2000. I actually crafted this one. It's the F2000 replica. You can either craft this at the crafting station or you can go out there and find the F2000. They're exactly the same. On this build, I'm currently sitting at almost 100,000 damage, 99.3. Then we have 900 RPM on the F2000 and 60 in the magazine with the update in 20, title update 20. Now I like this weapon so much, I started raising my expertise on it, so I do get additional 20% weapon damage on here. We have assault rifle, we have health damage, and then we have damage trucks out of cover. For the talent, you can run a couple things. I decided to go with flatline because of the gear set I'm using. It amplifies weapon damage by 15% to pulse enemies. Now after killing 4, it applies pulse to the next enemy you hit. Now I do have crit chance on the scope, 20 rounds in the magazine, and then I have 5% crit chance on the muzzle. Now with the F2000, you only have 3 mods versus 4, so that's something you have to think about when you're using this one. I feel like this weapon is pretty accurate, and if you got used to using the FAMAS, this one should be pretty easy. For your secondary, you can run whatever you want here. It doesn't really matter. I think ideally I would probably run the Scorpio, or if you want something to help you build stacks a little bit quicker, you could probably go with the Ouroboros. doesn't really matter. For the mask, I'm going with the Cheska mask. And what the Cheska mask does is it gives me 10% crit chance on a build that I don't have a lot of crit chance stacked on here. So I'm able to still get that 50 plus crit chance on the build, which is going to help me, right? And then we have 50% weapon damage, critical damage, crit chance, and then I have to put crit chance mods on the mask, the chest, and the backpack. So for the chest piece, I am running the Heartbreaker chest piece. This is going to give us 15% assault rifle damage and 50% LMG damage. I decided to go with the F2000 because of the 2-piece, and then also I get that 50% weapon handling from the 3-piece, so that's what makes it pretty accurate using this weapon with this build. Now the 4-piece is where the Heartbreaker set really shines, is because headshots apply pulse for 5 seconds. That's why I'm using flatline. And not only that, I'm using a pulse. And then it says weapon hits on pulse enemies adds a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1% weapon damage to pulse enemies. Now this is up to a stack of 50. So that means I could have 50% bonus armor, 50% weapon damage, and 2 stacks are lost every second. Now I do have armor rolled on this one. We have critical hit damage and critical hit chance mod. But then I do have the chest piece, so what it's going to do is increase those max stacks from the Heartstopper from 50 to 100. So now I'm getting 100% bonus armor and 100% weapon damage. Now I'm at 1.5 million, so that means at 100, I'm sitting at 3 million, which is kind of tanky, and you still put out a ton of damage. For the holster, we're running our second piece of Heartbreaker, so we have armor and critical hit damage. For the knee pads, we're running our third piece of Heartbreaker, and we have weapon damage on this one instead of armor, and then critical hit damage. Our fourth and final piece of Heartbreaker is going to be the gloves, and this is going to be armor and critical hit damage. And then for the backpack, we have the Memento backpack, weapon damage, armor, skill tier. That's what's so cool about the Memento or the Ninja. You always get those 3 those 3 core attributes. Then we have 6% crit chance, so that's going to allow me to get that crit chance. I'll show you in a second. And what's cool about this, you pair up the Heartbreaker, the extra 100% weapon damage when you have full stacks, with something like Kill Confirmed, where every time I pick up a trophy, I'm getting 15% weapon damage. I'm getting 40% bonus armor on top of the armor I'm getting from the Heartbreaker, right? And then when I'm at full stacks, that means I'm got 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. So you pair that up with a Heartbreaker set that hits hard with the pulse. It's just so good, and it's kind of how I've been running it. A lot of survivability, still puts out damage, and you can clear heroic content pretty easy. We'll go over to the stats for you real quick just so you can see. 54% crit chance, 105 crit damage, 75% headshot damage, 19% health damage. I can get this up. I'm not maxed out health damage on the AR. It's missing a little bit. And then if we go down to my armor, you'll see 1.5 million armor, and then 150 armor on kill, 150,000 armor on kill. I am running the gunner class, by the way. For that, a little bit armor on kill, give me a little bit of that survivability. Now your armor regen is up. I already showed you what it was, so that's something for you guys to keep in mind. But again, this is the build, a Heartbreaker with Cheska to allow me to get that crit chance up there. And then the Memento backpack with a 4-piece Heartbreaker has been an absolute blast. For the skills, I am running the Scanner Pulse, and then I just have Radius and Skill Haste on there. And then for the Decoy, just health and duration. So I'm running Decoy, the Pulse. You can put whatever skills you want. Recommend at least running a Scanner Pulse. That way you can just pulse the enemies, but overall, this build has been a monster to use and a lot of fun. So if you've been looking for a Heartbreaker set, you want to run something that still puts out some good damage, but has some survivability, the Heartbreaker is going to be that set for you. So 1.5 million armor. Remember, with the full stack, you can be at 3 million armor with 100% more weapon damage. And with the F2000 and having flatline on there, amplifies that weapon damage you're getting from when you're at full stack with the Memento, when you have the extra Heartbreaker. So a lot of damage that you guys can get here. So, and I think a lot of people will enjoy this type of build, to have this type of damage and have some survivability. It's just not pure damage, it has a little bit of both. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys are looking at creating this build, have any trouble, hey, try that F2000, guys. It has been a blast to play. But yeah, that's the build right there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Nothing but skills is out.